forward to being up in Kansas City later this month. I'm looking forward to what you got to say. So let's
Awesome.
make this do it.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it, guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Roberts. I came down and spoke to your Brad's organization and group. I guess, gosh, it's been a couple months ago now, and shared this Life and Air message. And for all of you that haven't heard about Life and Air, some of you probably haven't, some of you haven't. Life and Air is something that I kind of stumbled across by accident almost 6 years ago now, about 5 years ago, and it's something that has really, really changed my life in a really big way. It's taught me how to look at things differently. It's taught me how to manage money differently. It's taught me how to live life kind of for the first time for me while making money at the same time. And so I'm super passionate about sharing this message. We're doing an event, the Life and Air event, March 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Kansas City. And so I'll kind of, after the end of this, I'll kind of talk to you guys about that a little bit. There's no sales pitch or pressure or anything for me. I don't own Life and Air. It's not my company. It's just something that ties in with real estate investing and something that's made a huge impact in my life. I've watched it make a huge impact in other people's lives now, and it's something that I think is a really, really important message for everybody to hear. So I'll kind of jump into it a little bit, and I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit of my background and story a little bit. I had a big mortgage company here in St. Louis for a long time. I opened it when I was 21 years old, and it just blew up really big and really fast. And I'll get into an abbreviated version of that in a minute. But most of you remember 2007, 2008, when the whole mortgage meltdown happened, that whole system, the stock market, everything associated with mortgage-backed securities crashed and left pretty much every mortgage company scrambling and trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I was caught up in that mess. We lost, in the neighborhood of 50 to 80 grand a month every single month for almost 3 years until it completely wiped me out. And I know there's a lot of speakers that get up and say stuff, and I just want to be transparent with you guys so you can, kind of see where I was at when I came to real estate investing, when I came to Life and Air. And I know it's easy for somebody at the front of the room or on a webinar like this to say, I did all this fancy stuff with no money, no credit, and stuff like that. And, I've been sitting in that seat. I spent a lot of money on real estate education, and one thing for me that I always kind of was like, yeah, right, it's easy for you to say, but it's not a reality. So I threw a copy of my Chapter 7 bankruptcy discharge in here to show you guys that was October 2010, and I was wiped out. I lost my own home to foreclosure, cars repossessed, pretty much worst case scenario. 2011, I flipped over 100 houses and grossed right at $3.6 million. And there's a copy of my tax return, so you can kind of see that that is also what I said that it is. And I don't say any of that to impress anybody. Again, I just say it because that was from being as wiped out as wiped out could possibly be. I mean, I would say that I was in worse financial shape than anyone that's on this call right now, if not a close second. And I just share that with you guys because I've had a lot of people come up to the back of the room after I've shared kind of my story and said, thank you very much for sharing that, because I'm in a tough spot right now too. And I just really don't feel like I can see the way out. And I can tell you I was in a really, really down and out spot, and I didn't see the way out either, but there is a way out. My life now is a little bit different than it was before. It's actually closer to 400 deals now, flips, a lot of them short sale. We do probate and some lease option stuff and some other investing strategies as well, but a big emphasis on short sales. I coach some of the top real estate investors in the country from California to Baltimore, so I really am plugged into what's working and what's not working. I get to see the strategies that really, really work and really make money, and I get to see the ones that don't work so well. It's cool. I get to see the new stuff before the whole rest of the world sees it. I have, students all over the place, and they try a new marketing strategy, and it really, really works. So I get to participate in that. I own a hard money lending business called Freedom Capital that I mainly use to lend to my coaching students. And so I'm still very active in the real estate market. I guess the most important part of this slide that I want to emphasize is I'm able to do all of this in less than 3 hours per day. What the slide doesn't say is my partner Sean and my partner Rachel and I own our REIA in St. Louis, our Real Estate Investors Club in St. Louis. We've got 5 different businesses that are all real estate specific that are going at any time of the day, and I'm able to do that in 2, 3, 4 hours a day every day, and that's not on the back of anyone else either. And if you would have asked me if this was possible 4 or 5 years ago, I would have laughed and told you not. I came, my mortgage background, when I had the mortgage company, I was working literally at a minimum 12 hours a day, a lot of times 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And that was just kind of the way that I was raised. That was just kind of my work ethic and what I thought was the right thing to do. And the owners of Life and Air, when I sat down with them for the first time, really kind of challenged me to think in a different way. So I want to share that with you guys over the next hour or so. I want you guys to write down these 4 things, and whether you're wanting to start a real estate business, whether you're wanting to start any other kind of business, whether you're wanting to improve the quality of your life, these are the 3 universal laws that I came up with from my own experience and what was able to make me successful before. And the reason why it says 3, but there's 4 on the screen, is because the first 3 I came up with when I decided to kind of try to reinvent things when I was wiped out, and I said, you know what? I had a lot of success in the past. How do I get success again? And the best way to have any type of success, whether it's personal or business, is to model success and just copy it and not try to recreate the wheel. So I really tried to look back at what made me successful before. And the 3 things that I came up with were a recipe or blueprint, the ability to take massive action, and a mentor or coach. The 4th one I came along with, and I'll written vision, which is probably should be number 1. It's probably the most important one on here, but I'll get to why I didn't include that at first and kind of what that cost me. But number 1, when I say recipe or blueprint, I'm meaning not just goals, not just, it's easy to say, well, I've got goals that I want to do real estate this year, or I want to do 10 deals, or whatever it is. Those are goals. Those aren't necessarily a recipe or blueprint. So when I say recipe or blueprint, what I'm meaning is a step-by-step action plan on how to get from where I am to where I want to go. And I want you to think about that in the terms of like blueprints for a house. And it's great to say I want to build a house, but aren't blueprints to a house significantly different? I mean, they tell you how many 2x4s you need, how many shingles you need, how many feet of gutter you need, how many, to the nth degree, all the things that it takes to build a house from start to finish. That's what blueprints are. And so I want you to kind of correlate that to your business or to your life and think about where you're at, where you want to go, and a recipe or blueprint to get there. If I decided tomorrow that I want to be the best wholesaler in my market, first thing I would do is do some research online and find the best wholesaler in the country and see if they could mentor me, or see if they have a course, or see if they have something I can buy from them. And I'm not selling you guys anything on this call, so I don't want you to think I'm like trying to prep you up for that. I'm not. There's nothing for sale. But what I am saying is I would rather spend $2,000 on a wholesale course from somebody who's one of the top wholesalers in the country than to go and try to figure it out and learn it myself. I'm a big fan of copying what already works and maybe trying to make it better, but not recreating the wheel. I mean, if there's somebody who's doing what I want to be doing, I would much rather just plug into what they're doing than try to figure it out on my own. So that's what I mean by recipe or blueprint. Number 2, the ability to take massive action. I think I do a lot of webinars. I do podcasts. I'm constantly talking to large groups of investors. And I would tell you to circle number 2 if you wrote those down, because I think that number 2 is probably the biggest factor that separates real estate investors who make it and real estate investors who don't by itself. If anything else stands out on this page, is what I see really separates the people who are wildly successful in real estate investing and the ones who aren't. It's this massive action thing. And this is something that I've studied for a long time. This is something that I've really paid attention to. And I can tell you that in most instances, it's better to take the wrong action than to take no action. And I think sometimes we get so worried or so concerned with, am I doing the right thing, that we end up doing nothing, if you know what I'm saying. And the investors I see that do really, really well, they make a lot of mistakes, but that's because they're constantly trying things and doing things and trying new things. That's really what separates the investors who are making a lot of money in this business and the ones who aren't. When I teach a lot in the short sale business, and so anytime I sell my short sale course, I do 4 weeks of follow-up coaching for anybody that buys it. And on week 1, before we get into how to negotiate, before we get into the homeowner appointment, before we get into dealing with the bank and all that kind of stuff, the very first thing I have everybody do is start their marketing. Week 1, call 1, right off the bat, before they even know a single thing about short sales, we get the phone ringing first. And it always puts people outside their comfort zone. It always makes people a little bit nervous because they don't really know what they're doing yet. But what's the best way to learn? The best way to learn isn't out of a book. It isn't out of a course. It's by doing. It's by immersion. When I've taken helicopter lessons and I'm a couple hours away from getting my pilot's license, and I remember my very first lesson when I went to the airport, I thought, I'd probably spend 3, 4, 5 lessons doing ground school and teaching me how things worked and what this pedal does this and this does this and this does this. And I remember I wasn't there for 5 minutes and they already had me in a helicopter. They picked it up off the ground. They moved it over to the practice field, and the guy said, put your right hand here, put your left hand here, put your feet here, and the controls are yours. And I remember freaking out, because I had no clue what I was doing. But by the 4th or 5th lesson, I could fly it. And that would have never, ever, ever happened. No matter how many times I read the book, I could have never just hopped in there and flew it. So I really want to encourage everybody, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's personal relationships or it's business, that ability to take massive action right off the bat is super important. Number 3, are a mentor or a coach. This is super important too. I mean, if you want to model success and you look at any successful person who you want to model, they all have a mentor or coach. Every professional athlete, every professional business person. I'm a big, big fan of a mentor or coach. I have a coach for my real estate business. I have a coach for my life. I have a coach at the gym. I work out every single day with a trainer. It's not because I have to. It's because I want to get the maximum amount of results in the shortest amount of time. Could I figure out how to do all those things on my own? Absolutely. Can I get there 100 times faster and much, much cheaper by paying someone who already knows the recipe? Absolutely. And so while some people see it as an expense, I see it as a huge investment. And then number 4 is a written vision. And we'll talk more about the vision in this call, but this is the one that I figured out after I made too many mistakes. And I guess I'll kind of give you that story right now. When I had the mortgage company, it made a lot of money, and by the outside standards from everybody looking in, they said Jason had a pretty good life. I mean, I had the big house, I had all the cars, I could spend however much money I wanted to spend at any time and never had to look at a bank account. And, from the outside looking in, life looked good. But what life really looked like for me was, 12 to 15-hour work days. I abandoned my family. I abandoned my friends. I really abandoned myself. And I woke up one day at 30 years old when things were wiped out and realized I didn't really even know who I was. I had spent my whole life working and kind of getting caught up in the same trap of thinking, if I work really, really, really hard right now, someday I'll be able to enjoy life. And what the written vision did for me, when I first came into this Life and Air concept, like I said, I came into it by accident. I came into it at a short sale investing seminar that Sean McCloskey taught, and he's one of the co-founders of Life and Air. And he kept trying to tell me about this Life and Air stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Just teach me how to flip houses. Just teach me the short sale stuff. I don't want this Life and Air. I don't want this Life and Air stuff. And so I did the same thing with my short sale business that I did with the mortgage business, and that was, you saw what I put up there. We did 100 houses our very first year. That was another 15-hour-a-day workday. And I had just basically recreated the exact same life that I was trying to escape from before. And the reason why was I didn't have a written vision. I didn't have a clear vision for what I wanted my business to look like, what I wanted my life to look like. Steve always says, Steve Cook, the guy who founded Life and Air, always says people spend more time planning a vacation or a wedding or a trip than they do their own lives. And when you think about that, it's a pretty scary thing. Like, how could we expect to have what we want if we're not planning and working towards it? So the written vision is super important. I'm going to skip through this a little bit, but I will kind of cover, a little bit of it. I think basically my business became my life, and I kind of already talked about that, but it was 6, 7 days a week, all day, every day. My business kind of consumed me and consumed my life, and everything that I was doing was to feed that business. And a lot of people say, well, that's good, work hard and you can relax later. I remember sitting across this table from Steve and Sean, and I like business. I like building businesses. I mean, it's something that does excite me. It's something I am passionate about. But I remember Steve and Sean sitting across from me, and Steve looking at me and saying, Jason, it's really cool that you're good at business and you can make businesses make a lot of money, and that's a great talent. He said, but I'm just not really impressed. He said anybody can make a company make millions of dollars if they want to work 16 hours a day. He said what I would really be impressed with is if you could make the same amount of money or more working 2 or 3 hours a day. And I really want you guys to think about that, because that shifted my entire way of thinking. I had been in business, in big business, for a long time, and that thought had never ever crossed my mind. I was working in my business instead of on my business. And for any of you that are on this call, I'd strongly suggest you really put some thought into that. Look at your own business and really say, if this isn't $100 an hour, $500 an hour, $5,000 an hour work, whatever you deem yourself worthy, if it's not that pay work, then you shouldn't be doing it in your business. And if you are, then you're the greatest inhibitor to your own business's growth. So really kind of look at that and pay attention to that. But back to this, the business became my life. I think if you would have asked the outside world if I was prosperous, I think 99 out of 100 people would have said yes. But was I really prosperous? I didn't feel that way. It felt like my life was consumed with work. And really at the time, I don't know that I really knew any better. So what is a life-inaire, and where did this life-inaire thing come in? A life-inaire is sort of like a millionaire, only with a life. We always talk about everybody's focus is I want to be a millionaire. And we put so much focus on that we sometimes forget to include the other things that really matter to us as well. Many life-inaires are millionaires. Few millionaires are life-inaires. I can tell you that my biggest business is real estate investing and the coaching that I do, but I do get to travel around and speak every once in a while, and I can tell you that some of the big speakers in the country that are making a ton of money and are posting pictures of the new Lamborghini they bought on Facebook and the big huge house and all those kind of things. When I'm talking to those guys behind the scenes, they're living check to check. I mean, they're making a lot of money, but they're spending a lot of money, and I wouldn't want that life anymore. I wouldn't want to trade what I have, and a lot of times it looks good on the outside, but I'm here to tell you there's a different way to do it. You guys have heard of the board game Life, and I think that for any of you that have ever played the board game Life, who wins? How do you win? How do you win that game? The winner of the game is the person who at the end has the most money, right? I think that's how we kind of look at real life too, isn't it? We think the winner of the game is real life, is who makes the most money. What if I were to ask you, if you were to think about it in terms of, what if the winner of the game of life was the person who had the most life experiences? Would you play the game of life a little bit different? It changed me big time. It made me really start to think about things differently. And I'm not here to tell you that money's bad or making money's bad. I love building businesses. I love making things make money. But I was kind of living someone else's vision. I was kind of caught up in the rat race of the world of what everyone else is doing. And it just wasn't what I wanted for my life. It was kind of a distorted American dream. I don't think any of us when we were young thought, when I grow up, I want to have a $300,000 house that's mortgaged to the hilt and a couple cars with loans on them and a bunch of bills, and every single hour of work I do a day, I'm trading to pay the lenders for the things that I've borrowed for. I don't really think that was the American dream, but isn't that what it's kind of become? Have you guys ever seen that picture where it shows like all the cars jammed up on the highway and it says, I'm sitting 3 hours in traffic to go to my 8-hour job to pay for the things that I financed yesterday, and that kind of whole thing. And I just like this thing would just like shook me and said, there's a whole another segment of the world that's living completely different, and I want to know more about it. So maybe it's time to change the rules up a little bit and start setting yourself up to win. You know, I mean, there's a reason why it's so easy to get a mortgage, and that's because banks make a lot of money off of us borrowing money from them. There's a reason why you can get a 7-year car loan now. It's because the banks are making a fortune of money off of that, and so we're really working to finance someone else's income and someone else's dreams, and that's all fine and good. But what about us? You know, I want to provide for myself and my family at the same time. So I ask you guys, what does prosperity mean to you? When you really think about true prosperity, what does that mean? Is it really money? If I were to ask you, you know, what does $1 million change? If I gave you $1 million, how much would it really change, or what would you do differently? You know, the answers I get aren't the answers that you would think about, and so for me, it means freedom. I mean, what does prosperity really mean? To be totally free for me, to be able to wake up and I don't have to go to work tomorrow if I don't want to. There's no bill that's due. There's no hours that I have to clock. I'm not trading my time for dollars. You know, the ability to experience real abundant life. That I'm not mastered by money. That I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. I mean, isn't that really why we're trying to make money? But yet we get so. Maybe if we focused on these things instead of focused on how much money we need, maybe those things would come to us. And that's what Life and Air really showed me was kind of designing the life that I want right now, and then creating a business to serve that type of life. And I'm here to tell you, this just didn't work for me. I mean, I've literally watched thousands of people now go through this Life and Air program, and the stories of life changing is just absolutely insane. So, you know, I want you guys to think about. This was a really good question that I got asked, and it's kind of a scary question. But as you're sitting here on the call right now, I want you guys to think about how many people do you know in your personal life? I'm not talking about people that you see on TV. I'm not talking about a friend of a friend or a movie star or somebody like that. I'm talking about people that you know personally. How many people do you personally know that have the type of freedom in their life that you aspire to have? I mean, and I'm not talking about retired that worked for 80 years. I'm talking about people your own age and in your own life that you know that can wake up whenever they want to wake up, that can work whenever they want to work, that really have the type of freedom that you desire. How many? When I ask a room of a couple hundred people that question, 1 or 2 people know at least 3 people like that. And maybe there's a handful of people that even know at least one. The majority of the room doesn't know a single person that has the type of freedom in their life that they desire to have for their own life. Wow. Kind of a scary thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It really made me think, I don't know a single person that has the type of freedom that I want. And then you look around at the rest of the world and our country and see where everybody's headed, and maybe all the rats are running the wrong maze. I mean, that's not what I desire for my life. And if doing what we've been doing so far in our life got us there, then wouldn't we know a ton of other people that are already there, right? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of the norm? But look around, it's not the norm. So I really want to encourage you guys to think of things in a different way. So I want to talk to you guys about the 4 stages of financial prosperity. This was something that kind of changed my whole outlook on the way I thought about money and the way that money makes money. Is there good debt and bad debt? I always ask that question, and I know a lot of people have read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of people go to those seminars, and I'm not here to bash them or anything else. But what I am here to say is, when I ask people, is there good debt or bad debt? Everybody usually says, yeah, there's good debt and bad debt. And I say, okay, like give me an example of a good debt. Somebody will say, well, when I buy a rental property, that's good debt, right? Because I'm borrowing 50 grand and my rent's $700 a month and my payment's only 500, right? So I'm positive cash flow 200 a month. That's good debt. And I say, yeah, it is good debt until that tenant doesn't pay their rent payment next month. Then what is it? Then it's bad debt real fast, right? And so I want everybody to think about that. And I'm not here to say rentals are bad. I'm saying maybe think about how to acquire free and clear rentals. Maybe think about how to build a rental portfolio without debt. There are ways to do things differently, and when you think about that rental situation, that $200 a month positive cash flow is great, but what happens when your tenant quits paying? You still have to pay the $500 a month payment, right? How long does it take you to get a tenant kicked out of a house? I mean, it's great to say 30 days, but for anybody that's a landlord knows that it just normally takes longer than that. I mean, it normally takes 90 to 120 days to get a tenant out. So let's just say 120 days. So now we're $2,000 in the hole because we've had to pay 4 months worth of rent, right? But then we get in there and we have to do some work to clean it up and make it look nice again because the tenant trashed the place. So now we've got to put $5,000-6,000 into replacing the carpet, painting the walls again because they tore things up. Now we're call it $5,000 plus the $2,000 in payments. Now we're $7,000 in the hole, and now it takes another 30-60 days to find a new tenant to move in. And so now we're what, $7,000-8,000 in the hole. How many months of positive cash flow, 200 a month, does it take for us to make up our $8,000 that we're in the hole? I mean, it's literally probably 3 or 4 years just to get back to even. Does it sound like good debt now? I don't know. So I just want to. I'm not here to tell you guys what's wrong or right. I'm just here to make you think about maybe we're going about things a little bit differently. I don't know how many of you have ever read a mortgage and exactly what it says. The little stamp when they stamped approve on it. I think what it should probably really say is enslaved. And the reason I say that, this is something that the owner of Life and Air shared with me, is that basically what we're saying in that mortgage is we're saying, yes, Mr. Mortgage Lender, Wells Fargo, I agree to work for you for the next 30 years of my life and be a faithful servant. And every month I will continue to pay you, for the next 30 years. But should I ever forget to pay you or not have the money to pay you, then you're going to foreclose on me and kick me out on the street. So it's not really my house, right? I mean, basically I'm promising to work for them and pay them every month for the next 30 years of my life, and then I'll get to own my home. But should something happen in the middle of that I'm unable to pay, I don't have my home anymore. And so all of these things just kind of like started hitting me at once and making me really think about how my life was set up. Life was good as long as the money was good. But then all of a sudden when it wasn't, I could have paid my house off. I could have paid those cars off at any given time when the market was good, when I had the mortgage company. And I did what the CPAs and the accountants and the lawyers and the tax people told me to do. And Jason, you need write-offs and you need expenses and all of these things. But I'll tell you one thing, when you have those things stripped away from you, things that you worked hard for, and they're stripped away with you and you're left with nothing, it makes you start to kind of look and see things from a different light. So what's the purpose of our business? What's the purpose? I desired freedom in my own life, but I was trading time for dollars. I was giving it away. So let's talk about stage one, where we build the foundation, and that's where we have to develop a real vision for what we want our life to look like. This is by far the most important step, and it's the step that most people skip. I kind of already mentioned, more people spend more time planning getaways and parties and retirement parties and that kind of thing than they do planning out what they want their own life to look like. We got to put life in there first somewhere. And I think that sometimes when we're trying to write this vision, we want to filter it by the things that we have in our own life right now. And I really want to encourage you guys to really work on writing a vision. And when I say vision, there's a lot of different components to that. Your relationships are a component. It's not good enough to say I want better relationships. It needs to be specific. It needs to say, I have a great relationship with my wife. We go on a date at least once a week. We take a vacation with the family 3 times a year to places that we like to get. I mean, it really needs to be very, very specific and on purpose. And a lot of times people kind of have a hard time with what they want life to look like because they've spent so much time working. I remember when Steve and Sean sat across from me when I first kind of came to this life and everything, and they said, "What would you do with your time if you didn't have to work all day, Jason?" And I said, "Well, I would start another business. I really like businesses. I'd start another business." They're like, "No, you don't. That's not what I'm saying. If you did not have to work, if you didn't have to start another business, what would you do with your time all day?" I said, "Well, I guess I'd probably help somebody else with their business." And they're like, "No, stop. No business stuff, no work stuff. What would you do for fun? What would you do all day long if you did not financially need work, to pay your bills?" And I was kind of deer in the headlights, which is really, really sad. I mean, a 30-year-old guy, and I can't tell you what I would do during my day. And this isn't a made-up story, guys. And so I really encourage you to ask yourself the same question, because at 30 years old, I couldn't give him a good answer because I had just consumed my life with working and paying bills. And I remember Sean looking at me and saying, "Don't you have a motorcycle?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, when's the last time you drove it?" And I said, "Gosh, really, it's been in the garage for a couple years." And he's like, "Well, all right, then do you like riding them?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's a good escape for me. I enjoy it." And he said, "All right, well, how about on Wednesday from 10 to 2, from now on Wednesdays from 10 to 2, you go ride your motorcycle?" And I was like, "Well, wait a second, I got to work." And he's like, "No, we're going to filter this out without work." So I was like, "Okay, but that's crazy, but yeah, okay, fine." So we put that on there, and then we put, exercise was something that I've always said was important to me, but I never made time for it. I just worked too many hours, and I put it on my calendar. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym today at 5, and then an appointment would come up, and what the first thing to go was the gym. Going and getting another deal was always more important than my health. And if you would have asked me, I would have said the health was more important, but my actions kind of reflected a different story, and I think probably a lot of you on the call can relate to that. But I did tell him, my health is important to me. And he's like, "Okay, great. So let's put the gym down at 2:30 every day. From 2:30 to 3:30, you go to the gym." And I was like, "Well, wait a second. I have to work." And he's like, "No. Don't filter it by work. Just start putting these things in here." And so as I started going through this process, I kind of started opening my mind up a little bit to what life should maybe really look like. And we're here for such a short amount of time. I don't know that work should be the number one priority. For those of you that have trouble with this exercise, this was a really good question that's on the screen. What kind of life do you want your children to experience? So if you're having a tough time coming up with a vision for your own life like I did, and you have children, maybe ask yourself, what do you want for your kids? Do you want your kids to have to work 60 hours a week? Do you want them to be overcome by debt? Do you want them to make every decision in their life based on the bills that they owe? I mean, if you could design a perfect looking life for your children, what would that look like? And that may give you a really, really good start to your own vision. Most of us are teaching our children to do what they don't want to do so they can exist to do more of what they don't want to do, right? It's a scary thing, but we're kind of recycling the process over and over. With life and air vision, the path to experience in life becomes much, much clearer. I want to kind of run through this calendar exercise with you guys real quick to give you an idea of kind of what Sean and Steve did with me so that you could do it on your own. And I want to encourage everyone on this call to do the same thing. I want you to get a blank calendar like this. And this was actually Sean's when he did it for the first time. But I want you to take a blank calendar like this, and I want you to start filling in what life would look like if you weren't enslaved by debt. If you didn't have to wake up every day and trade time for dollars for the things that we financed, what would life look like? So this is an example of kind of what Sean did. So he said, my kids go to school in the morning. I'd love to be able to get up every morning and cook breakfast and just be able to spend a little quality time with the kids in the morning. So he went through and blocked out from 7 to 9. Then he put church in there on Sunday, and he put, the rest of the day hanging out with his family and doing some fun stuff with family. CBMC is a Christian businessmen's club that meets on Wednesday that he said, I'd really love to be able to go to that once a week. Plays in a band, so, the band practices once a week. He put dinner and time with family, from about 5 to 7 so that he could make sure that he was home for dinner and spend that quality time with his family. He wants to be able to put his kids to bed every night and block that kind of time out to be able to spend some time with them again at the end of the day. You put, date night's important. You put date night on there on Friday night for time with him and his wife. Put some exercise in there in a couple different places. Some quiet time of reading or studying or doing something just specifically for himself. He put in Saturdays, him hanging out with his wife and his family, just doing kind of fun things. And what was left was 24 hours left in the week left to work. And so when we do this exercise at the 3-day event, almost every time people have between 20 and 25 hours left in the week to work. But yet we've all subscribed to this 40-hour work week is what's right. And a lot of us are working significantly more hours than that. Definitely working more hours than that if you're working a 40 or 50-hour a week job and you're trying to build your real estate business on the side too. So I really encourage you guys to kind of look at this exercise. One of the biggest things that will take you from where you are right now in your life to where you want to be is getting a big enough why. The reason why they did this exercise with me is because I needed the why. It was really easy for me to say, well, I can work 40, 50 hours a week. I like working. I mean, why wouldn't I work? But when you really look at these things, and I say, when I wrote this calendar out for myself, I thought, everything on this calendar I would rather do than work. So the why has to be big enough. You've got to really see it for yourself, a big enough reason why trading time for dollars isn't giving you the quality of life that you want. Step 2 is getting our needs met. Once we have the vision of what we want our life to look like, the next step is meeting our needs, right? The monthly bills that we've already accumulated, we have to make sure that those are paid every month. This is the must-win stage, right? I mean, if we don't come up with enough money each month to pay our car payment, the car gets taken away. If we don't come up with enough money each month to pay the house gets taken away. So this is our must-win stage. This is where this is the money you work for. This is where we're really trading, time for dollars. We're essentially trading our future away. This was a really good explanation for me to see. For those of you that are visual learners, this was something that for me was kind of eye-opening and sickening at the same time. So when you look at this pie chart, I also want you to look at it as a percent of your time that you're spending working, trading time for dollars every day. So if you work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, let's just say you work 10 hours a day just because the math's easier and I can do it a whole lot easier. But let's look at this and just say a 10-hour work day. So what this is saying is that on average, the average American spends 32% of their gross income on their mortgage payment. And that's right. I mean, for being a mortgage lender, it's DTI on the front, 32%. That was a normal what households spent on a mortgage. But what it also says is 32% of my work day, 1/3 of my work day of when I drive to the office and I work all day long, the first 3 hours a day 3.5 hours a day that I'm working for Wells Fargo. I'm not working for my family. I'm not working for my future, right? I'm working to pay Wells Fargo for the house loan that I have. Another third of my day, I'm working to pay the government my taxes, right? Almost another 3 hours a day. So now 6 hours of my 10-hour workday are already spent between Wells Fargo and the government. Then we've got to get food in there. We've got to get just miscellaneous expenses, student loans, car payments, credit cards, all these other things. And when you add up this, we're spending 9.9 out of 10 hours of our workday working for all of these other things and just this little bit for our own life. But yet we're asking ourselves, it's kind of that definition of insanity thing, like we're doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. And this really kind of hit me really, really hard and made me really kind of think for the first time of, gosh, I'm like a rat in a maze and I'm just running. But if I'm only taking 1% back to build my future, it's never going to happen. There's got to be a different way. And that's what this is saying. How can we really experience prosperity when we've traded all of our lives away, when we've traded away all of our free time? Complicated versus simple. So the harder we make step 2, the harder it is going to be to experience true prosperity, to experience true freedom, to experience true wealth. The, the, the more expensive of a house we think we need, the more expensive cars, the more, not that any of those things are bad, but when we're making step 2 so hard to meet every month. I had a guy in my coaching group that when he first joined, he said, Jason, I'll equate my business life to baseball. And this is a guy who lives in a big $1 million house. He's got a lot of nice cars, and he's got, outside looking in, life looks great. He said, but you don't understand, Jason. Every single time I get up to the plate, a Babe Ruth or somebody that goes down in history as one of the greatest baseball players, they only had to hit the ball 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 times to be great. He's like, I have to hit a home run every single time I get up to bat. Every time I have to hit a home run. And if I don't, everything comes crumbling down around me. And I get that not all of us are to that extent, but I really want you to think about your stage 2 needs. What we all kind of programmed to do is, you've got a $60,000 a year job, right? And so your expenses kind of match how much money you're making. And then one day you get a raise to 80 grand. This is where we have an opportunity to take that extra $20,000 and build real wealth. But you know what most people do? They trade in their $30,000 car for a $50,000 car. They sell their $200,000 house and get a $300,000 house. And they increase their stage 2 needs as their income is increasing, and they never, ever, ever get ahead. So I just want you to think about where you might be doing that in your own life. I want you to think about prosperity through simplicity. When stage 2 is easy to meet, stage 3 and stage 4 can happen. The harder stage 2 is to meet, you may never ever see stage 3, stage 4. And that's why the majority of Americans today live check to check with very little savings and very little retirement and that kind of thing. And I want everybody to think differently about that. The time we trade away is our life. So we've got to manage that, right? We've got to really on purpose take control of it. So for me, the answer was just kind of a blinking sign that said, all of this kind of comes back to debt. All of me being controlled every day that I had to wake up and go to work was because of the debt that I had, right? I mean, I want you to really think, and this may come up in another slide, but I think now is a good time to say it. I really want you to think about your own life right now. And I want you to think about, let's just say I show up at your house tomorrow and I write a check and I pay off your mortgage. I write a check and I pay off your car loans, and I pay off your credit cards, and I pay off your student loans, and I pay off every single debt that you have, everyone. So you're completely debt-free. How much money would you really need to make on a monthly basis to live a pretty cool life? I mean, to live your vision, how much money would you really need if you were completely debt-free? What if every single day on the first of the month, I showed up with $5,000 in cash, and you had no debt, so you just had to spend that whole $5,000. As long as you spent it on life and doing things, I would show up on the first of the month again with another $5,000. Could you live a pretty great life that way? The answer almost everyone says is yes. I mean, if they had zero debt in the world and $5,000 a month to spend on whatever they wanted, you'd live a pretty cool life. Basically, what that's saying is if you were debt free, you could debt free and made $60,000 a year, you could have a pretty incredible quality of life. Next thing everybody says is, well, that's great, but I'm not debt free. So we'll get into that in a second, because I wasn't debt free either when I started this process, and neither was anyone else that's gone through this journey. But I made a decision to stop borrowing. Okay, that's the number one thing I can do. I can't necessarily control the things that I've already financed. I can, but not as directly as I can. I can definitely control not borrowing any more money. And so what I did is kind of, revamped my business. I focused on rehabs and flips. I focused on working with the cash that I had, do some joint venture and some mentoring, and looked at free and clear rentals. And we'll kind of get more into that at the event. But when life is debt free, life is simple. It takes me now about 20 hours a month to meet my needs. And so I can knock that out in 2 or 3 days, a month worth of work. All the money that I need in the month for my family to live is taken care of with literally about 2.5 days worth of work every month, because I no longer have any debt. There's no mortgage to pay. There's no car payments to pay. There's no overhead to pay. I can have the rest of that month to create more cash, to spend time to do the things that I kind of want to do. And so I really want everybody to kind of grasp that and think about that. So set yourself up to win. When stage 2 is easy, it's easy to win. Let's talk about stage 3. And this is where we really start to see prosperity, and this is where I think most of America kind of checks out and doesn't really understand this part. We're all trying to get rich off of our stage 2 income, and that's not how truly wealthy people are. So stage 3 is earning excess cash. This is the first stage to actually building wealth. So this is excess cash. This is cash over and above what we're earning right now. This is above our stage 2 needs. Most people try to skip this stage, and this is what happens. We try to skip step 3 and we increase our lifestyle, or when we're creating extra cash, instead of investing or doing something with that excess cash, we're spending it, we're buying more expensive cars and doing all those different things. So how do we create excess cash? We work overtime, we sell stuff, we could build a real estate business on the side. I use flipping houses for big chunks of cash. Our average home flip that we do is still right around $30,000 a piece. And so I get that when you're sitting here thinking, well, that's really great, but how do I eliminate this kind of debt? Well, I mean, if you could just do 3 flips a year for 30 grand a pop, that's right around $100,000. How long would you have to do that before you'd be debt free? The answer for most of you is probably less than 2 years. So it's not this big, scary, impossible thing. I haven't found a better way. I always kind of hesitate to say this because I don't want to give people the wrong thing. I like real estate, but I don't love it. I'm not like this crazy passionate real estate is the best thing in the world kind of guy. I'm really passionate about my life. I'm really passionate about changing other people's lives. Real estate is just the vehicle or the catalyst that allows me to do that. I haven't found a way to make more money in a shorter period of time than with real estate investing. And today I get to keep my profits. There's no flipping a house to pay the bills. Today that stage 3 income that I receive is what I use to push into my funding company so that the excess cash that I'm creating is going back out and earning me more cash. Uses for excess cash, I mean, you can pay down debt, you can spend it on whatever you want. I recommend investing it. I recommend putting it into something that makes you more money. Steve said something really good to me once, and he said, however much money that you have sitting idle, say you've got $10,000 sitting in the bank, every dollar you have is like a little employee. So you've got 10,000 little employees sitting there, and you're their boss. And so you can be a crappy boss, or you can be a really good boss. You can put that money to work where it's working for you while you're sleeping and making you more money, or you can leave it sit there, or you can be a bad steward, or you can do whatever you want. But creating the excess cash is where we can really start to build wealth. Do not increase your lifestyle with stage 3 income. This is why all of America is where they are, guys. This is so important. This is how you break free from every other house that you look at when you stand in your window and look down the street. This is how you break free from that. Instead of taking that extra excess cash that you're creating in stage 3 and increasing your lifestyle, invest it. Put it into something that starts to bring you a return. I'm going to skip that story real quick just because we're running short on time. Stage 4, this is where that excess cash that you've created and the investments that you made, maybe it's a free and clear rental, maybe it's a $30,000 rental property that brings you, $700 or $800 a month rent that has zero payment to it. When your excess cash that you created in stage 3, you're investing it into stage 4. Once your stage 4 covers your needs, now you can really focus on building wealth and pulling more time away from the job, or really transition out of working full time, or any of those things. We have taken hundreds of people, and maybe probably even more than that I've seen personally myself over the last 4 years, that I'm talking about doctors, lawyers, engineers, nurses, teachers that had the same debt that everybody else had, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of debt. And inside of 18 months, completely eliminated all of it to where they could really focus on life. So stage 4 is investing in income producing assets. Focus on free and clear stuff, passive income, things that are making you money that you don't necessarily have to work for. I know that a free and clear rental is not necessarily passive, but if you put a good management company in place, it's about as passive as income can be. Use debt-free investing strategies. We teach all kinds of ways to invest in real estate without debt. This is a little slower to get going, but then the snowball effect is when it really starts to build up. Your stage 4 income replaces your stage 2 income. So this is how you transition away from the full-time job. This is how you really become able to focus on your vision and put the life stuff first, is as you're kicking off that excess cash and investing it into stage 4 income producing assets, and not too much time, your income producing assets are producing the same amount of income that your full-time job is. And that's where you can really start to see transition. Increase your lifestyle with the stage 4 income, not the stage 2 income. This is when you're throwing off excess cash that you don't need off of your investments. You can reinvest it. You can pay cash for things. You can buy the car you want with cash. That's the time to start doing it, not in stage 2. Retire, do whatever you really see fit. Quit the job. There's a really cool story, Jen and Andy Kuba. I can tell you a lot of different stories like this, but this is just a couple. The reason why I have them in here is because they went to the same short sale wealth boot camp that I did in 2010. They met Sean and Steve the same day that I did. And this was a little bit older email that they sent, but this was fairly early on in their journey. And they said, guys, I hate talking about this, but we have to share our joy with you. We just closed our third deal of 2013. That was in February, so 1 month into the year. And our needs are met for the whole year. Thanks again for helping us keep things simple so that we have the time to live out what is most important. I also had lunch with a new investor yesterday. He told me he wanted to make $1 million next year. Without hesitation, I said, why do you want to do that? We had a good conversation about his wife, kids, and caution he should have when designing his business. I think Life and Air has finally become a part of me. And then this was a more recent one that Andy sent at the beginning of February of just last year. And he said, Steve and Sean, I just wanted to let you know how thankful I am to God and his provision for you both for your leadership. Yesterday, we closed our first deal of 2015 for a $55,000 profit. The only thing we did to the house was get the fleece treated. The profit covers almost 100% of our living expenses for the whole year. Just need a little more to cover taxes. We are grateful and amazed. Also, Megan got good news at the doctor, but point being, I could show you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these emails, but think about in your own life being able to close a deal the first month into the year and all your expenses for the entire year. So if you want to take the next 11 months off, you could, or you could work a couple more months and create some savings. There's just a whole different way of living out there that hopefully we can expose you to. The vision is really, really powerful. What I came up with after I did my vision was I knew debt-free was the way it had to be. I knew that time with my family was important, volunteering, working no more than 7 days a month or 21 hours for my needs. My needs to keep our family, with food and gas and electricity and things like that were about $5,200 a month. So it's not that much money to be able to live and do the things that you want to do. If you want change, though, you've got to take action. You need a different vision for your life. Things are not going to change in your life unless you change them. That definition of insanity thing always keeps popping up for me. It's like, how old am I? How long have I been playing the same game over and over and over again and expecting a different result? If you want a different result, you got to take different action. That's what the 3-day Life and Air event is all about, is taking you through this. There's nothing going to be sold to you at this event. There's nothing to buy. It's a 3-day workshop where we take you through the vision writing process. We take you through the nuts and bolts of how to make this happen. And this is something that's available for everybody. Like I said, we have doctors and lawyers to school teachers to firemen to police officers to, every possible job in the world you can think of. Somebody in our Life and Air groups have gone through this transition. We all need a vision. We all need to really take control of what we want out of our lives. And this 3-day event is a really good way to force yourself to come up with that recipe and come up with that blueprint and that plan to change your life in a really, really big way. So the Life and Air event, it's in Kansas City. You should receive an email link with how to sign up for it. It's March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So for those of you in Springfield, it's just 2-3 hours away. I would highly recommend you bring your spouse. If you buy a ticket to the event, you can bring a spouse for free. It is $197 for members, $297 for non-members, which is super cheap. This is normally an event that Life and Air charges $1,000 for, but I came down to your guys' group a couple months ago and spoke about Life and Air, and Brad said, this is something that we want our group to be able to see, so we tried to come up with some kind of really no-brainer, easy decision-making thing for you guys to do. So it's $197 for members, $297 for non-members, and that $197 includes a spouse if you want to bring a husband or wife, which I strongly recommend that you do. And I will give you guys this guarantee because, again, I don't own Life and Air. This isn't a direct benefit to me, but if you don't feel like you got if you don't feel like you got $1,000 or more worth of value the very first day of the 3 days, you just come talk to me. I'm going to be helping teach the event. I will personally give you your money back plus $100 for wasting your time. I've never ever had anybody take me up on that offer, guys, and so I really just want to encourage everyone on the call, take 3 days out of your life and make a change. Take 3 days out of your life and really focus on you for once. It's not a selfish thing to really design a life that you want. I mean, I think we owe that to our husbands, we owe that to our wives, we owe that to our kids to be present, to be there, to really experience life while we're here on this earth. And I'm telling you guys, there's a way to do that. So click on the link. Guys, get registered. I'd really like to see all of you there. It will fill up. The room is only for 150, and the last time I checked, I think we're at like 120 or 130 already. So make sure you do go on there, register. I'm not just saying that. The room's set for 150, and when it's at 150, that's all we can do. So I really encourage you guys, click on the link, get signed up for the event, and get there. I'm going to be there for 3 days. My partner Chuck's going to help teach. There'll be a lot of different members of our Life and Air community there to share their stories and how they did it. And this is really a time for all of you to make a big, big positive change in life. So hopefully I motivated you enough to do that. I know that it was a big life-changing thing for me, and I hope to see the same for you guys. I'll let you guys get back to your families and your lives. Thank you very much for spending your last hour and listening to what I have to say. And hopefully I'll see you guys all in KC in about 30 days. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brad. Talk to you soon, guys.
Yes.